Oh God!
Welcome
I'm going to assume I don't have any notes.
to the Barrel Vision podcast. Harry is
That's the notepad.
pulling out his folder full of whatever we're talking about today.
Oh, it just says class-specific drops, even though we weren't going to talk about that.
Okay.
Can?
Well, you're gonna have to make a new thumbnail because
No, because that's not... Well, that could be the whole video. I don't think it has to take up an entire podcast. But also, forget about it. I don't see how the main topic isn't... I don't see how the main topic isn't going to sustain us either. I don't see if we're going to we're probably not going to be pressed for time. Or, sorry, probably not going to have a lot of time to fill, I'd imagine. Considering the topic is both specific and broad at the same time.
specifically
Because
broad.
we're talking about biomes through a specific lens, but we're still talking about biomes, and that could spin off in so many different directions.
Well, I feel like
So brilliantly easily.
I feel like it's worth mentioning, why we're talking about biomes. In the
It's a pretty difficult road to, well, it's a pretty difficult thing to backtrack, I think, because it's not. It's us. It is definitely us from us jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
Because last week was basically was about the idea of new grenades, which was based off of the roadmap, where we were told that we're getting new grenades in season 3.
confirmed.
The other main half of that information was descriptive of the theme very loosely, and we took that and turned it into, not assuming, but we both agree that it's very likely that there will be a new biome in season 3, and that will be the main content. Just what trends show and how things are going.
If you want more detail as to how we came to that conclusion, there'll be a video coming out Saturday, which I'm going to finish working on tomorrow, and then that'll be up, and that'll explain why we say what we say when we mean we think there's going to be a biome. And as much as I'm pretty confident there's going to be a biome, it makes a lot of sense. There's also a chance that it could be like an anomaly or something like
else.
But,
well, anomaly is sort of the other one that it could be,
that it
assuming
hasn't
that it's not
added, but it could always be another game mode or another warning, which I don't think anyone would particularly want over biome.
No.
But those are options as well. But we're kind of running with the whole biome idea because it also makes more sense to assume it with what they've said.
Well, but the information we have is that there is an object on a parabolic trajectory, which basically means isn't like an escape velocity thing? Isn't it? It's going to pass by.
It's going to enter the sun's pull, but then because of it, will be slingshotted out of it. Like it'll come in and then it'll kind of do a U-turn and fly away.
Which is genius, by the way, because I assume that doesn't mean it's going to be. I assume whatever parabolic trajectory actually is, it doesn't mean it's going to be fast. I assume it's going to be like a full orbit.
It's fast enough
AKA,
to fly.
It's going to take a season's length for it to leave.
Yeah, I mean,
genius.
It is
because it's literally going to leave on its own, which is why we can probably assume that it's not going to crash into Hoxie's, which is the idea. That's sort of really what it hinges on, though, or at least if that's the case, that's what will make it much more likely to be a biome. That this object, whether it be a spaceship, whether it be an asteroid from another planet, or a large creature, whatever it is, if it crashes into Hoxie's, that would make introducing a biome as out of nowhere so easily explainable. But it would still work if it were just to pass by. I just think one of those options makes it much more likely than the other. But I don't know what the option of it just passing by would mean for what type of content it is.
Yeah,
I don't know what the other option would be.
I think it bears noting that because of the way they described it, right? Currently, it seems like it might just be a season, right? For this season, for season 3, there might be an extra biome, and then it will go again, which would feel kind of. I don't want them to add content and then remove it. I think if that's
they won't do that with a biome.
If
they wouldn't do with a biome, out of all things.
I suppose, but like if that's something they actually want to do with the seasonal things, the seasons are a mistake. Like
But
if
they don't want to though. We
yeah,
know that kind of.
no, they don't. They have admitted that they would be willing to remove the robots when they were adding them. They removing them from the game was on the table. Admittedly, the industrial sabotage, they never said they were going to remove it, just like delegate it or just kind of push it further into the back. But yeah, removing the content is on the table, at least was when they were talking.
It's not.
About
I don't think it is at all. I think they understand that at their rate of production, they don't really have an excuse to remove content.
Yeah.
And it's kind of annoying to say that, but it is true. They're not a AAA company. I mean, I don't really want to bring up Halo, actually. It's just not, because they're taking longer to pump out content, but that's not the point. Point is,
like they're not pumping out content enough to then get rid of
Fortnite
stuff.
can easily remove content. Fortnite is like a TV show.
Yeah.
You know?
People are coming and going all the time.
Is like, Deep Rock is like a movie series where there's like one every like 5 years. As in, you can't just... Every piece of the puzzle is extremely important because it's not as often, which means everything is extremely impactful.
Yeah.
Because it's not... It doesn't even matter if the updates are smaller. It's just the frequency or lack of frequency makes everything more important and makes people latch onto things. And that things that stay around for a while without new content being added, which means we get used to things. Everything becomes a part of the game, whether they like it or not. The only stuff they can get away with removing is the pass and the cosmetic tree itself, only to be replaced with a new one, and for the content to be cycled back into other means of acquiring content. So I think removing content on a larger scale is actually completely off the table. You know?
Yeah, but
nothing that we've got is going to fully disappear.
It just bears note that because the way they described the parabolic, that specifically that way, that describes it coming and going. Like they could like at some point, like maybe closer to the season, we could get like an update by like DRG and like the fictional company be like, okay, we've miscalculated, because often that kind of occurs, like the Rock kind of move. It's actually heading for a direct course to Hoxie's or something like that. So currently it sounds not as bad, but eventually as time passes, it starts getting worse. And
well, isn't it also the fact that it's on a parabolic trajectory with Kratos, with the star,
currently,
and that's an important detail because that doesn't mean it can't crash into Hoxie's.
Yeah, but it also currently that is not what they're saying either, which could be dramatic flair. But
take what it says; it actually makes more sense than it wouldn't as a description to not. For the description that's given, for it to not spoil that it is going to crash into Hoxie's, but for it to also not rule out that it will. It actually makes perfect sense. If it's orbiting Hoxie's, or it's on a parabolic trajectory with Hoxie's itself, it's not going to collide with Hoxie's, and it might just pass straight by it. But if it's just passing by the star, there's still a chance it could crash into Hoxie's, which I think is why they worded it that way.
Well, yeah, I think they worded it that way to kind of build up to it. In that, they will later like kind of DOG be like, uh-oh, this thing's going to hit us. Like, this thing...
Well, yeah, because at the moment, all they know is that it's going towards the star on this certain trajectory, but there doesn't... I think there's probably like only a certain point where they can actually see exactly where it's going.
Yeah. And then come
and we'll know
a week
to the
before
time.
the update, it's like, prepare. Like, which I think would be really cool if they kind of do that. Like, maybe for like Twitter posts or something, just kind of role play, like with as like an update report on what's going to crash into the planet, or like just in like in-game updates somehow. But I think it would be cool. But yeah, but it bears note that as it stands, there is a chance that if it was a spaceship, it could enter the system, right? Like an abandoned spaceship, it could enter the system. We could go on it for a season, but then it will kind of fly off and it won't be there the next season. That is on the table as it stands. I don't think anyone would want it, really, unless it went down about as well as the robots and people hate the biome. But yeah, it's on the table.
Well, obviously, there's a pretty massive problem if it was a spaceship, and we'll get to that. I mean, there's some pretty massive issues in general when it comes to this object possibly being a new biome. That I don't think we've really fully recognised how it might not work at all, to be honest. And I'll get to that. But yeah, the point was, well, the point of this podcast, it was going to be somewhat idea focused, but not in the same way as last time.
Yeah,
not only because we're doing more guesswork, but also because last week was based on something that we know is coming. We're just guessing as to the specifics, and we're just throwing a bunch of ideas out there. It's like a list. This is more. Well, that was very discussion oriented, but only. Well, it being discussion oriented is what resulted in its length. It wasn't actually originally going to be. It was going to be a bit more boring. Thankfully, it wasn't. But this will be more discussion oriented because we only really have three main ideas, or really even two. And it's more around the idea of new biomes than the ideas themselves.
It's going to be what could this thing be, and if it is a biome, how would that occur, or something like that. How would it cause a biome, affect a biome, create a biome, something like that.
Well, I don't think we need to get into why exactly we think it will be a biome, and that's from
Saturday.
I don't business is right. I just mean the seasonal structure standpoint and trends and whatnot. It was a fairly simple equation, I think.
Yeah, and
there's a little bit more nuance behind it, but that's not really what we're here for.
And there's no real argument against a biome either, because I keep thinking we got biomes quite recently. We don't need a new one, but then I realised industrial sabotage. We got that immediately after the other two. I mean, actually, I don't know. We got the oil refinery and escort duty, then we got the biomes, and then we got season 1, right? So, biomes are on the table. As far as it's not that long ago, or it's precedent of it being them adding more of that, even though they added it recently. But yeah, I think we do have a couple ideas, and I guess we're gonna go through them.
Well, yeah, let's do the fun part first before I bring everything crashing down, and we realise that everything sucks. So, well, we have more than two ideas. It's hard not to have more than two ideas for new biomes, but there's two core ideas that what we know allows for. That there's a large body, we don't really know what it is, just on its way, and what that can accommodate, and that is a spaceship or a body, as in just a large creature, probably a dead creature that's just floating through space.
I think those
that's big enough to have an orbit or be caught in orbit.
Those are the interesting ones, but I think it is also bear note that there is a chance that it is just a giant rock that will then hit Hoxie's and open up. Well,
that's the other one. Biome. Yeah, but that's sort of the outlier that allows for the non-core ideas. I feel like the flesh biome, which is what the body would turn into, as it being a body of a creature, that's probably the biggest one, actually. Or at least it's the most unique biome that's quite at the top of the line as far as biome ideas goes across the community. It's very commonly brought up. I don't feel like the spaceship one actually is, though. I've definitely seen it be brought up, but it's not most popular idea. That might be us more so.
Yeah, well, I'm not thinking I don't want it to be just an actual normal ass spaceship. I want it to be if you've played No Man's Sky, an abandoned freighter. This is a vacant husk of what used to be a ship full of something, basically.
It does need to go a little bit beyond that, because to make it make sense as a biome, it needs to be some kind of well, actually, in the thumbnail. So in the thumbnail, there's a picture of the Borg from Star Trek, which is sort of this. That's the thing. I sort of realised I don't actually know what the Borg is, but I'm just going to make it up. The way I think a spaceship could work is that it is some kind of AI constructed, basically, not so much a ship as it is just a giant supercomputer, and to sort of excuse randomly generated terrain inside a spaceship, you first of all have to make it absolutely massive, but you also have to get around the fact that not every part of the ship can serve a purpose. It could literally just be you're walking through circuit boards or something. It's that kind of scale that we're looking at. It's not really a ship designed for things to be inside of. It doesn't have like computers and terminals everywhere. It's much more unknowable, but still very clearly technology based. You can't just have like a biome that still uses the randomly generated terrain of deep rock, but also have it be a spaceship where every part of it serves a purpose or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult sort of concept to navigate, I think, in terms of allowing it to be a biome, but it's still, that's sort of why I want it to be a biome, because it's such an interesting idea. Just basic, like you sort of have to divorce it from the spaceship thing, because it almost doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
Why there would be this randomly generated cage inside a ship. So really, you need to find a way to do it where what you're actually doing is just a technology-based biome. That's really the center of the idea.
Yeah. And I don't want to interrupt,
breath.
but my battery's about to die, so I will cut it here.
He's gonna cut it. Or I could just make stupid noises.
Sure, but I'm gonna cut it. So.
Mr. Blobby Wobbly Blobby Wobbly.
Yeah, that is kind of annoying, because I realised that I could have just done it while you were talking and no one would have known, because it's
yeah.
I don't know. I thought that if I did it, it would have muted you as well. I wouldn't have been able to pick you up, but it did fine. But
Oh. You fucking dumbass!
No. But I kind of waited for you to lull. But technology's spaceship bologna.
Bologna.
Yeah. I think an organic feeling, because it would end up like, because it's not going to be like flat square rooms, right? It's going to be a really
well, that's the thing though. That's the thing. I think it probably should be, or at least more flat.
I think it would definitely
almost hexagonal rooms or octagonal rooms.
Yeah,
instead of
sharper corners would
circular.
be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or just corners in general.
Personally, I would like there to be some like symbiote, parasitic reason why it crashed kind of thing on it, because that would also unlock a new enemy type or a new enemy, so that would kind of tick that box.
Yeah, and having it be too technology focused, it's just like, it's actually, to me, I can't really divorce from an aesthetic standpoint what I'm talking about from the rival corporation itself, which is obviously something they're trying to get away from, which is why it's like, oh, the ship, like new enemies, it could be like the ship's defense systems. What's that going to be? Just like
more robots,
turrets, and robots. So you sort of need to get away from that. So an alien infested ship is substantially more interesting.
And I'm aware they want to distance themselves from the robots, because it was a really quite divisive idea, but this, while also being directly connected to it, would also put an end to it. But what if this spacecraft ship that was AI generated was the hub of the rival?
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And they collapsed due to just, I don't know, a parasitic or some form of something they picked up from Hoxies. They brought it back, and it just took them out like a virus would in like War of the Worlds, like just like some, and or maybe like
the chances of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1, they said.
My uncle used to sing that because we watched War of the
The
Worlds,
chances
and it really
of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1.
He said it a little
but
less
still,
fun.
They come.
Yeah, but like imagine they took glyphids to like analyze them, or like nature, and they mutated them. And so they now have like evolved or mutated forms of the nature. Like, I mean, again, nature already has that, right? Like, Trijaw, slashes, grunts, all those things. Guards. Point is, maybe that could be what the new enemies are. Instead of just a completely alien, parasitic new entity, maybe it is a altered, upgraded, or just different, like, type of things that are already there. Like, this could be a way of them adding a lot more variety to the already existing nature. And it's
I
because
sort of had the idea of, depending on how a new biome would work, specifically in this context, and how they could very well distinguish it, is by having it filled completely with new enemies. But at the same time, that's such a daunting workload, which is why not scaling it back, but sort of modulating that to be more so just a lot of enemy variations, almost not exclusively, but mostly visual changes, really. And even then, you wouldn't have every enemy. It'd probably be mostly just glyphids, in fact. But there'd still be some significant visual changes and some functional changes too, to show what's happened to them.
Yeah, maybe some like augmentation, like they've been slightly sci-fi'd.
But it would still make the biome feel wholly unique.
Yeah,
and there's no actual original enemies.
I think that you. Oh, see, I think you could definitely like. I don't know. I think it could just expand the current glyphids. I know they could already do that by just saying, "Oh, we woke more," like they did last time. But this would be a really interesting way of doing it. So they're like, the rival tech mutated like the grunts, and they've added like 3 new variants that are like really quick, or like, I don't know, some other different types of forms, or like stuff like that. And maybe they do have like a bit of augmentation, or maybe they are just all natural. But then, like, in the ship, there will be like actual, maybe not robots inherently, but it would have some defense system in place, like cave angels in the Holobra, right? Just biome specific.
Wait, hold, stop. I'm not going to call you out on Holobra, but I'm going to call you out on the fact that you thought that's where cave angels are.
Right, the other one.
That's fine. I'm not going to tell you.
The point is, enemies that, because it is like the Stabophides in the Holobra, right? It is a biome specific enemy, and I feel like as much as nobody really wants robots again, like maybe they can just make it different enough to feel different.
I think people. Well, that's an interesting discussion actually, because I was about to say, I think people don't realise that it's actually the rivals specifically and not robots, until I remember that a lot of the main arguments that people use to say, well, they don't like the robots, isn't necessarily how they function from a gameplay perspective. There's just something more inherently satisfying and, frankly, I would argue slightly psychopathic about the fact that it's just more satisfying to kill organic creatures.
Yeah.
You see their... Like,
it's
pretty weird, but it is like death screams and blood.
Yeah.
They're inherent components of shooter games, really, that make them. It's not that weird. Like, it's sort of been the way things are, like, for decades now, with how shooter games work and how they are satisfying. Is that you get the sense that you are actually killing things. You don't always feel like you're killing something. I mean, I'd say the patrol bots kind of get it right to a certain extent, although they're not the kind of thing that you, because they almost have death screams and they have interesting death animations where they look like they're just losing their shit.
Yeah,
they've exploded into a bunch of components, or they just roll around losing.
Looks good.
They've literally lost their minds.
But you know, where you pickaxe a shredder. Has that ever felt satisfying? You just kind of hear it like a clink. And then they just kind of drop.
Well, no, but divorced from that, the main thing that stops the robots from being satisfying is there's no horde clearing. And this is sort of it's quite a broad term, or at least ambiguous term. But there's no point with the robots where you're just cutting through dozens of them, plus of them at the same time. It just doesn't happen.
Not even with the
even though some of them are quite weak. Yeah, not even. Well, no, I know. So, and I would say it's due to, in part, they sort of put themselves in a box where the rival enemies are all either stationary or flying. there's something more satisfying about moving ground-based enemies. That is just inherently the case, and I hope that they realise that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
In that, I really hope that whatever new enemies they add in the future, the next lot of new enemies, I hope they're not mostly flying or stationary. I want some more stuff that moves around in the way that we expect, and just glyphid variations, but in this more extreme manner, fits that bill pretty perfectly.
And the thing is, at this point, I mean, this is literally, I'm developing it as I say it, but like this idea is heavily tied to the robots, and I know they're not doing robots anymore, but like it just kind of makes sense, because also this could be like now the only place you bump into the robots, right? And this maybe could even be the only place where industrial sabotages occur, or maybe they can still be one every so and so wherever. But
well, the problem, you see, you sort of accidentally opened a can of worms I didn't want to open. In that, how the hell would industrial sabotage work in such a different environment? None of the components there make sense. The caretakers wouldn't be shielded in like the rival corporation's ship. They wouldn't have power stations dotted around doing what they do. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
and but the problem is that applies. Yeah, but the problem is that applies to every mission type.
Yeah.
And it makes... honestly, I know Deep Rock's not a game where realism is important, but it doesn't mean that things don't mostly make sense within their own right. And it would make so little sense for you to be able to carry out the normal missions that you do.
Which I think
on an alien spaceship.
This goes further than that.
Why is there Morkite there? Why is there a Quark there?
This goes further than that.
Nuts.
It's same with the living creature. Doesn't make any sense that anything would be inside of it. You know, it literally, if the new biome is inside of the thing coming to Hoxie's, it doesn't make sense that any of it works there, right? Like, it's just how it is. You know, why is a giant space being have a quark in him?
Well, this is why... yeah. Right, okay. So basically, how you have to view this is which one of these ideas actually works from a gameplay perspective, in just allowing the game to function as it normally does. But then you also have to ask the question of, is that exactly what they're going to go for a new biome? Maybe they're just going in a completely different direction, where what you can do in this biome is actually quite divorced from normal. And maybe it's like all new minerals or something quite extreme like that. And you don't even have to allow every mission type to work on it. Maybe it's only a select few. It can get quite specific. But if we want to have it so it functions entirely normally, you have to ask the question of which one of these ideas really accommodates that, and how much do you have to change an idea? Because maybe we should go to just the asteroid one. It's just rock, and that means they could use it to
crack open the caustic caverns or whatever that one was called. You know,
it could be any biome, and
maybe
the way that you would have to have it work is that it crashes into the planet, and in some way is able to integrate itself. Well, you could only really operate on the borders of it. It's the only way it would really work. I don't know. It's a really difficult conundrum, to be honest. Which is, I feel like you want to say something.
Well, I don't know. It just, it really doesn't. Like, they're gonna have to pull some bullshit out of their arse for it to make sense at all. Like, literally, like, just because of the way that everything is, these minerals are only found on Hoxie's. That's the reason why they're there, right? Nothing else that could be added should have it in them, on them, or, you know, add to them. Like, maybe this new asteroid might add a couple new minerals. Maybe it adds, like, a new kind of element to the world. Let's go with that. Because, I mean, that's more of a reason we had than Phasionite. But, yeah, maybe it adds new minerals for a new biome, and that would kind of be good. Because, you know, more biomes, the more mineral combinations that are kind of getting mixed up. But...
well, this is why the sort of anomaly / possibly another mutator. Well, anomalies are mutators. Anomaly or warning idea works. I mean, I don't really want to see another warning again. Not again. I mean, in the next season. Yeah. But the simple idea of fragments of the object breaking off, and then they are what collide with Hoxies, and just sort of creating these anomalies is much more logistical, frankly, and it actually allows for an idea that I've had for a while of a very extreme anomaly that basically does what you were suggesting with the glyphids, but sort of on the scale of it can affect every biome, and like, when you have this anomaly in place, it causes extreme visual changes to the biome and the enemies. I don't know how well that would really work in terms of adding gameplay, but you sort of see the effects that whatever this object's made up of is having on every different biome. The only problem with that is that really going to create any new gameplay?
Yeah,
not if it's an anomaly, I don't think, because that means it's just sort of benign visual changes, and I can't really think of another way it would work. But obviously, a new biome is so sort of grounded in the idea of it is mainly a visual difference. Or, well, not just visual, but sort of like
visual difference, like feel to a
sensory
level.
Difference, and that includes the physical terrain that you're traversing. Even though that's different, that can create differences in gameplay,
and like terrain hazards, which it would be nice. But I don't know. I really like the more we thought about it. It's just I don't know what they could be going for. Because, I mean, I think the safest, simplest, but also kind of saddest thing they could do is the asteroid would hit Hoxies and open up or, I guess, create a new biome. Like, that's about as creative as they can get while it also making sense. And you could have it be the impact of this meteor wakes something up. And the flesh thing was already in Hoxies. You could have that easily, right? I mean, the flesh idea is not off the table, especially considering they actively have published that they put it on the table, right? Like I think we've seen although it was probably a joke.
Well, it was kind of jokey, but at the same time, there's no way that when it comes to like an idea, I don't know if document is the right word, but just their list of ideas, it's probably exhaustively long, and just it contains ideas from every possible place you could think of. There's probably no shortage of just the ideas that they have written down, and it's really just their job just to file down what they actually want to act on. They probably have such an extreme imbalance of ideas to actually executed ideas. The number of things that aren't acted upon is going to be way higher than the things we actually see added into the game. It'll be ridiculous, and that's something I want to see. I want to see what's on the cutting room floor. I want to see what's just like on the sticky notes just around the office, just all the random crap that they will never add, but it's just there, or the stuff that they are saving for later. Like, to just even consider.
As much as development-wise, they are probably one of the most open developers. They're constantly teasing and talking about the new seasons. Obviously, they don't say everything. They like to keep it a bit of a secret. But the fact that we already know we're getting new grenades kind of proves something. You know what I mean? Like, what do you know you're getting next thing for Halo, Harry? Like, anything? Do you know you're getting anything for Halo?
Well, season 3's a bit wishy-washy, but we know that co-op campaign is coming soon in Forge, and I think they said there'd be new weapons in season 3. I'm not sure.
But Ghost Ship is a bit more reliable and a bit more open than about as open, but reliable. We'll go with the reliable, and they kind of just. I don't know. I'll be honest, lost my train of thought. But they're just cool guys, but they don't tell us everything, and they're too vague most of the time because
I think sometimes they reveal a little bit too much. In terms of showing content before it comes out.
Yeah, but the thing is that I think you know those post-it notes that you mentioned that they'll never actually add. I think they have them on the table still. Like they are. I don't think they're.
Yeah,
actually,
that's what I mean.
They're never actually willing to throw away any ideas, which is why
Well,
when
yeah, the
anyone
list
asks
of
them
ideas
anything,
stays.
it's pretty
The
hard
list
for
of
them to say no.
The list of ideas stays. I don't think they cross anything off, but most of the stuff on there won't be added still. But they don't cross. They don't have. That doesn't mean they have to cross it off.
We
Because
don't know
it doesn't
that,
mean
and
it's been
they
decided.
don't even know that. So it's nice. It's nice to know that eventually probably an idea you had might be added, depending on how reasonable it is. But it also kind of leaves everyone in the dark because even they don't know exactly what they want to do with things, which isn't inherently bad. They're people too, but they're like a lot of people are asking for things and like they just don't inherently know what to give. It's just a bit messy.
Which is why I honestly I sometimes actually feel kind of bad for like pitching ideas, or at least really big ideas, or it's certainly big new concepts. I think, which I believe classes comes under that. I don't think biomes does. I don't think grenades does, especially when they've coming up with ideas for things that are probably getting added is perfectly fine. That's literally just that's speculation. That's more speculation than it is pitching or saying, I think that they should work on this instead. It's actually more so us guessing what they are working on. And we know they're not working on new classes, but we know that they're working on new grenades. And we know they're working on something, a new big gameplay element, and we're just guessing that it's probably going to be a biome. But it might not be. At the same time, I don't know how to steer this discussion away from biomes because I really cannot guess as to what else it would be. That's a pre-existing gameplay component.
I think we should rule off at least warning. I do not think they're gonna add. Well, I don't think. If they add a warning, I don't think it's the only thing they're going to add, right? Because, don't get me wrong, the rival presence is not a bad warning. It adds a substantial amount of gameplay to a mission. But I don't think anyone's going to be happy with another warning. You know what I mean? It's like...
Well,
especially with
it's interesting
also
because
being
rival warning is one of the most extreme warnings, and to me it sort of showed the potential that they might have. We are doing a podcast.
James.
Hello. Hey baby.
James, we're in the middle of a podcast.
How do we navigate this? How am I meant to do this?
Any biome ideas, James?
I wouldn't be angry at like a ship, like maybe like the rival company ship.
Oh, it's almost as if he watched our video before it came out. It's literally what we were talking about earlier, James. See, I think because as much as that idea isn't the best, it probably wouldn't. Although actually, it might work. For a reason that, if that ship, let's go with the idea that it's AI generated. It is literally, algorithmically created. Like, obviously in the game it is, but also, the rival tech is a AI machine that creates stuff. It could...
I've got it!
It could, when crashed, copy and replicate Hoxie's as, its ship.
Okay, so... First of all, I'm going to point out the fact that you actually are a psychic, but that's not the idea I just came up with. That's an idea I had already that was basically a planet mimic, but it would only mimic.
Okay.
It wouldn't mimic large components. It would sort of mimic the activities of the dwarves. But why I'm actually getting it now is what it would do if it was AI generated or something, or it was some kind of ship that moves itself around basically. Every time we go there, it's trying to stop us from getting to the center of it, basically.
Harry, are you pitching the expedition game mode?
No, I'm not pitching a different mission type at all. That's the point. It's that basically every time you go there, you don't actually know what you're doing. It's pitched as that's what you're trying to do, but every time you go there, it sort of it basically presents a randomized mission instead, and you sort of just have to do that because it's just like. And maybe it is actually building towards. Maybe it's actually observing the dwarves to sort of figure out what it wants from them.
The thing is, I would be really like happy and confident with this idea, right? Because it honestly, it's the coolest idea I've ever heard, right?
It's essentially holographic mission types. It just generates missions for the dwarves to stop them from getting further below. It just distracts them, basically.
I think the mission thing, I don't know, a randomized mission might be interesting, but I'm thinking more like of a biome that is like algorithmically mimicking the area around it, and you kind of complete missions there, and I think that's like a way of making the AI robot thing make sense. And it would also then maybe allow a trip to the core game mode, maybe at some point. And I think these would be really cool pictures if we didn't know that robots are being dropped. And I think that chances are,
it doesn't have to be robots. It's just something else.
A robot could drop from the sky.
Yeah, but like and as much as I think that the rival tech's literal hub crashing into Hoxie's dead.
No, but my idea doesn't
have
to have anything to do with rival tech. It could just be some big. I guess entity is correct. It's just sort of this big object at the center of it that is an entity or an intelligence of sorts that's able to manipulate the space around it in such a way to stop things from getting to it. And it means they wouldn't even have to create a biome. This could be something new entirely, where it is actually a fully randomized mission. It's just sort of presented in a different way by the company. It's just like, this is your objective, but you go there and it's just picked a mission that's already like on the map or something, so it recreates like the biome, but sort of elements of it are like slightly off. Maybe every time you hit terrain there's like a slight like computerized feel,
that's
visual
what I was
effect,
thinking.
or every enemy sort of like disintegrates like into data or something.
It's just like slight computer variations to make sure you kind of know something's not right.
But it's sort of a feeling. Yeah, but it's sort of like training you. I don't know. It's like observing us, basically.
Yeah, it's like testing.
I think
from experiments.
I think
it's just like. I mean, it's just like I'm trying to simplify the idea.
The thing is,
what
you're
pitching, basically be very close to the base game, just with some more. It's more trying to convey a feeling.
Is basically everything. You're pitching like a game mode while also not pitching a game mode, while also pitching a biome, while also not pitching a biome, while also pitching like I don't know, probably just enemy type.
You're trying to simplify. You made it more complicated.
You were pitching just a new everything. Just like
it would definitely be an anomaly. I got it. I've got it. It would definitely be an anomaly. You sort of pick out a mission that has this anomaly, and you think you're going to that biome, but you're actually going to, well, the object, and there's something on the map that's sort of like generating the image the physical image that you see as the mission itself. But if you end up finding that completes the mission in like a different way.
I think this could be an idea if you ditch the biome element.
Yeah.
If you lean into it,
but I just said this is for an anomaly now.
Yeah.
This is how an anomaly
the
could
anomaly,
work.
and it's like if you load into a mission with this anomaly active, it actually just changes the mission. Like if you go into an elimination, but this warning's on, you'll go into it and it's now like a quark or something like that. Like
no. It's actually what you'd expect. It's actually the sort of the entity itself picking a random mission
I want you to do this
to recreate.
But how is it any different from just actually having the mission?
You know what you're getting into. You can, because there's like, it's like this. I guess it's like a projector of sorts somewhere. It is probably placed randomly, but there'll be a specific way you can find it. And if you find it and destroy it, that's sort of just like.
You just got to make that way too fucking complicated.
Opens the curtain to what? It's an anomaly. It's not suddenly going to be killer final boss. It's still got a quark mission, let's say. Like
no, you just sort of find this like thing. It's not the end. It's not like the whole end game. It's just this individual thing that it's using to pretend that there's a mission going on, and if you find that, that finishes the mission in a different way. I sort of like the idea of anomaly having mostly slight changes, but sort of one bigger thing hidden that allows you to, like, there's no way of completing a mission differently than from just completing the main objective. And well, what if that wasn't the case? What if there was a way to complete a mission in a different way? And this is just one possible option, albeit the most extreme. But that's just because it gave me, having this like extreme idea gave me this idea of completing missions in different ways.
What if, I don't know, because if you go into that mission with the anomaly, you know that there's going to be that option, but it doesn't really, right? So you're either going to be looking for it all the time, or you're going to not care, because it doesn't actually change the result of the mission. You can still just get it done, right? But I don't know, maybe I do like the idea that you then can leave the mission without actually completing it, but I think only if it kind of leans into it, in that if you were to interact with this device, mission control was like, oh shit, it's a trap, get out of there, and then all of a sudden immediately a drop pod's coming down, and shit starts just ramping up exponentially.
That's pretty perfect. So it's not, I think it would still be counted as completing the mission. It would kind of have to be.
It should give you
because this is your sort of alternate goal. It'll probably give you more rewards, because it would basically be like extraction, but on hazard 10 is what it would turn into.
Yeah,
it's just
literally
suddenly your objective is get out. It's not extraction. It's your objective is get out.
Your objective is survive, and it just spawns like 2 to 3 times more enemies than normal, and the harder variants, and it's just harder. And but it's something you choose to do. You can not interact with a device, and you can just complete the mission normally. But the anomaly means that it will be there somewhere. And it can be I don't know, it could be a part of a wall is slightly glitching. The terrain is just slightly glitching. If you break through that terrain, you enter
there's a fault.
You enter a white room
outside. Because basically, it's all of these are taking place in one massive room that could accommodate for any one cave size. Because it's only doing one at a time, I guess, or maybe because it could be the case that it's only one of these anomalies at a given time, because it's only recreating one cave system at a time.
It would be a bit much. Can't lie.
Yeah, one per rotation. So there's somewhere in the mission that you can sort of break out. I guess. It is a bit too predictable, though, isn't it? As in, you're never not gonna. You're just gonna end up always. If you go into one of these missions, you're always just gonna want to spend the time doing that. But so you sort of have to. Maybe you either find a way to do it differently. As in, find a way to execute this idea differently, or you make it so it's actually not always worth doing.
Yeah, I think the risk just has to be first of all, I think it has to be relatively difficult to actually find it. I think you should be able to see it in the map, but only if you walk very close to the entrance, the glitching wall. If you walk past it without realizing, you'll see on the map that there's something there, but you won't actually see it. Maybe that you see a glitched icon on the map, right? You should be able to find it, but it's not easy. But then, even if you find it, you might not want to actually press the button, because maybe you won't survive. You cannot deal with what it would summon if you press. I'm still imagining just this white vacant room with just a red button in the middle or something
Matrix-esque.
Yeah, that you've escaped the system.
But how does this work with rewards then? As in, you think the season specific challenge would be complete one of these missions to get a script, but maybe scrap that because it is just an anomaly, and it's actually get free scripts if you complete the mission in that way, but you don't get any bonus if you do it normally. I don't know.
I think
kind of a little bit incentives for people to actually want to do it instead of it being harder.
I think.
Yeah.
I suppose, but I don't know. I think having just the option to leave early, but it comes at a cost, will be something, right? But I also do think you should kind of get a bit more of a bonus. Like maybe like I know anomalies don't actually give you a percentage bonus, but maybe this one would a bit. Like it would give you like a 30% reward bonus if you just leave this way. Or like,
Well, think about it. Double XP is literally just a multiplier. So it could just have a multiplier built into it where it's like 1.2 times rewards or something.
yeah.
It's not difficult, really, to add, I think. I think it should be, yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine.
Which I
Like
think
1.2 times performance points or something.
I don't know. I just like how fucking cool would it be, right? If you're just walking through a normal ass cave and you see a glitchy ass wall and you mine into it and you see this empty white room with a button, you press it, suddenly mission control comes up and it's like, oh my god, it's a trap, get out of there immediately, the drop pod's coming down now. Yeah, you have like 2 minutes, or like, or there even a timer, or maybe it like doesn't visualize the timer, it's like glitched, and suddenly you leave the white room and the cave outside is just like green squares or just blackness, and it was like it's just like the terrain has completely changed its look. It's now a lot more ominous
so
and
it's
a
still
lot more violent.
it's still the terrain, but it's probably just like
It's like degenerated.
it's like
well,
it's
just
like
maybe
a
it's just
mesh.
glitchy. Maybe
It's a
it just
frame.
becomes blocky.
No, I'm thinking more like a mesh frame or something like that. Like it like, because I mean, if you're leaning into the simulation, you kind of got to lean into the simulation, you know, like. But I don't know. I kind of want the game, because the game is actually quite full of
The season's just called Red Pilled.
the game should lean into horror a bit more, because it is kind of quite horror filled. Like I don't know if you
It's
like
well, in terms of that stuff, it's very inspired by Alien
yeah,
and The Thing.
like I saw a concept art panel thing that someone took a picture of, and like their concept art of like the glyphids and that are really horror. Like they are full on like not really body horror because they're aliens, but like, you know, like proper full on horror looking designs in like a horror game, which then get, I guess, simplified and kind of cutened by the polygonal look of the game. But like, if they were to like, I don't know, kind of double down on the fear, of like,
Fear.
like just making the cage really dark, or like the enemies like just, I don't know, scarier or something. Like I don't know.
Well,
It'd
like
be
the
really
enemies
cool.
are like also like wireframes now or something.
I'm thinking like almost.
But they're
blacked
clearly
out.
projections.
Like, or like.
No, because the terrain thing's a bit weird, because it's like if the terrain's like a wireframe, what does it actually look like? It needs to sort of feel like it's still physically there if it's going to be used still. So I think the terrain should actually just be... It should just be like waves of like the simulation failing.
Yeah, that's
just
what.
running through it.
I guess.
It's because like it exposes. It's like a wave that goes through the cave, like sort of exposes it for a second, sort of like flashes in and out.
I think
But
maybe
not like,
make it
not
a
like,
bit darker.
Not like a light switch. Not like a light switch. It's sort of it's like a wave moving through the
It's like
terrain.
it's like a, I don't know, like a blind superhero, like kind of, or like an echolocation wave of like glitch that raises above the ground. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that would definitely, yeah. But then like the enemies are, yeah.
But there would still be some signs, I think, as well, just to give the whole thing a different feel. This is very high concept, but at the same time, that's what they've been doing, right? Yeah. It's only really shown with the two so far. But it was very self-admitted with the industrial sabotage mission. That it outgrew their sort of expectations in terms of scale and scope, but at the same time, and I guess it applies to Escort Duty more than Refinery. But when they added those two missions, they were sort of they are higher concept than all the other missions, really. Yeah. And then Industrial Sabotage just takes it a step further, and then take the most recent, take biomes, I guess. Hollow Battle certainly is a bit higher concept than the others, and if they go in the biome direction, then it excuses much higher concept variations, or just things about that biome it being much more different. It's excused. And then the other one is the warnings, where it's like it's much more slight, but it's still very much the case. Where I'd argue that well last time they added warnings before Other Presence was Elite Threat and Swarmageddon. Swarmageddon not so much, but Elite Threat was definitely high concept in and of itself, but it's also came along with a new concept that it just drew on. I'd argue that is slightly high concept, and then you sort of up it a little bit with rival presence, so it's probably the highest concept warning so far. Seasonal gameplay additions are just sort of upscaling what's recently been added, which is why another reason why I think biomes are actually very likely, but also why anomalies work as well, because it's sort of in the only problem with anomalies is that it doesn't have the recent precedent. Where we have all these we have warnings being added recently that are a bit high concept, and missions and biomes, but they haven't got to the biomes yet, which is why. So sort of like hollow bounties are wheeled sort of are a bit on a slightly higher level than what was there before, and then season 3 will go the extra step that season 1 did with mission types, and that season 2 did with warnings. So biomes makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm also sort of just explaining how seasons take in-game components and just go to the extreme with them. So I don't think what we're suggesting is crazy.
Yeah, very.
But it's just being high concept. It just being high concept doesn't rule it out inherently. It just so happens to be very high concept.
And obviously, I think we did kind of get lost in the idea, which I don't hate.
Well, that's
really like
fine.
the idea. I also think that maybe it might
awesome.
work better as an event, because then you won't know it's coming. Like maybe you'll just notice in the wall, which I think will be fucking sick. But yeah, I don't know. Like they can do so many things with the game, right?
As in
so
that could
many
be the
things.
seasonal event, maybe.
Yeah, or just and maybe the biome is like a holographic biome or something like that. But like, they can do so many things for the game, which is why, to be honest, season 2 did disappoint. Like as much as generally I like the season, the fact that it was Robots Part 2 was sad.
Season 2 disappointed me conceptually, but in terms of additions, I actually prefer it. I think
it has had some good additions, yeah.
The secondary weapons added by season 2 are much better balanced and just
design-wise,
overall more fun.
I think we talked about this
the primaries.
Yeah, we think that honestly half the primaries missed. Hurricane.
The main gameplay addition is much more enticing, in my opinion. Rival Presence is much more attractive
especially with
to do
the assignment they did.
than Industrial Sabotage. Rival Presence is much more fun. It obviously has more variation because it can be on other mission types. Because it's not a mission type, which is why I think, from a gameplay perspective, season 2 is actually better.
It is better.
I was about to say a lot better, but it is better. It's just better.
But the whole Robots Part 2 disappointed me. Although Nemesis
conceptually it's not really there, which is why I think they're actually taking a bit more time in season 3. I mean, we know it's the summer holidays, it's like, sure, whatever. But I still think it's taking slightly longer than usual, and I think that's because they're actually devoting more probably to the theme than anything else. They have to, because they're not like recycling anything.
I think
they objectively recycled stuff for season 2. There's no denying it.
As much as the seasons, I think, paid off, because I think they're people are playing it like at an all-time high, right? There was also a notable backlash to robots. Right. So I think they are more careful this time in that, and I hope they don't play this poorly in that. I hope they're playing it more carefully and they're thinking more about the idea, so they don't just kind of hope people because Robots was a good idea, but they changed stuff a lot. Like they added.
It was a good idea, but not for 2 seasons in a row.
Oh, maybe that too, but like.
Well, that's the thing though, because I'm thinking, what if that's actually how things are going to be though? It's honestly probably not even a bad idea where every season is actually a 2-parter, because that means that if every season is completely new, we're going to have gaps this long every time. It's actually a longer gap. Well, it's a longer wait between than what was between season 1 and 2, and I think that's because they are able to reuse stuff. So maybe they should do it this way, where it's kind of unavoidable, but they can sort of shorten the gap between seasons by having 3 and 4 be directly connected, so it's a shorter wait. But then, because the other wait is always going to, like, if they have to create new stuff every time, like completely, it's always going to be that longer one.
Well,
it's always going to be that longer wait.
The thing
It
is,
does not take the edge off where it goes in and out of being a longer wait and a shorter wait.
Because I think this wait is only as long as it is because they're taking a month off in the middle of it. Maybe not a full month, maybe not a clean full month. They're probably going to be stewing, talking about it. But it is their break month, right? It's probably not that big of a gap as the other ones, right?
No.
Like the gap between the I think it was biomes and then season 1, that was massive, right? Because that was them planning the entire game.
Well, that wasn't exactly what it was.
Yeah, but
you're right. There wasn't the only. Yeah, but there was still a proper content update in between the two.
Yeah, but only because they knew how long it would have been without it. Like they pumped out low effort, maximum reward stuff in that time. You know,
I mean, it was.
So people did it themselves.
At first, I wasn't. I was excited by the ideas, but not too hot on them when they first came out. But honestly, double warnings is a wonderful, wonderful addition. And I like elite enemies. A lot.
Stormageddon,
so good on them.
I'm surprised they took them out to add it. Elite Threat was a thing that it just made sense. It's like an extra hazard. Like it makes it more easy. And then the mod things allowed people to kind of fill the content gaps that they kind of knew they were going to have now. That the updates would probably be more spread out. So mods would help with that time. And I mean, you said it yourself, Harry, right? That they chose the mod.io, whoever it is, because they intend to add it to like Xbox and console. Right?
It's because they do support it, but it doesn't mean it's easy, and so much so that it's not actually currently in the plans, because it would take so much time to figure it out still.
Yeah.
Because it's not as simple as it's not okay. Yeah, sure, Mod.io supports it, but that doesn't mean that Microsoft and Sony do. It's a difficult thing to navigate. But I think even Bethesda are probably lucky.
Yeah.
That they were able to get mods on console, and it's Bethesda. You know, so how long is it going to take for them? It's probably just such a commitment that they'd rather add their own content, and I honestly prefer that.
And also, you got to bear in mind Bethesda. I mean, they added some DLCs, but once the game is released, the game's released. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like they're not. Bethesda don't do live service. I mean, I guess MMOs are inherently live service, but like Skyrim's not a live service game.
Yeah, they can get away with
that's why I don't
spending
mind
a bunch
having
of
mods
time
on it.
on adding mods, right? Because that's the one thing they have to focus on. But now, fellas,
they're always adding content to Deep Rock. It's just like I don't need mods really, and it's sort of, in my opinion, as fantastic as mods are, it's always a good thing. But for me, it would probably slightly taint the experience for me, and something slightly impure. And this might be very specific to Deep Rock for me.
I mean, considering you cannot play Skyrim without mods, you actually just haven't played Skyrim without mods. So you're clearly a mod.
True.
It is. I mean, you literally you've got to level 5.
No, it's not true though. That's Skyrim Special Edition.
Oh, what have you? Actually...
I've played Skyrim before there were mods on it. That's why I can't play Skyrim Special Edition without mods, because it's the version that has mods. I played Skyrim before I was able to do that. So. Basically, what I'm saying is that Todd Howard should be join. Be creative director. Games.
No.
Ghost Ship Games should be the head director of Bethesda. I don't know how that works, but you get what I mean. Point is...
You mean Mickle?
Sure.
Fuck you.
The point is that I don't really know what they could do. Like, it's just so many options, and it could range from being so simple. Like, literally, this asteroid hits Hoxie's and releases the Caustic Caverns, which was the half-finished biome idea they had, but kind of scrapped because they preferred the hollow brow, whatever. And so literally that could be it, because then if you think about it, they don't have to spend as much time on the biome because they've already done it, so they can spend more time doing other things.
At the same time, that doesn't fit in with what you've already observed, in that all of these major gameplay elements are high concept and the previous editions in those departments.
Yeah, but maybe...
And Caustic Mire would not be high unless they did something wild.
maybe
it's not going to be high concept and as a wield or hollow bow.
Well, maybe caustic Maya or caustic thing isn't exactly going to be 100% of the actual content. Maybe
It's also technically high concept just by virtue of being created by an asteroid. So,
yeah. But, like maybe it's the caustic Mayas and they add a something else because they acknowledge that they didn't have to spend as much time on it considering they already had it half done, right? But it could go from that far to the godforsaken hellscape that we described earlier of like a fake reality anomaly and or biome and the ship crashing and all that bollocks. It really could be anything, and we won't know until like another 2-3 months probably.
It's like Lovecraftian technology. It's just
Yeah, and
scary shit.
I think it bears note that, and I think we often forget
Magic.
this for very valid reasons. This is a fantasy universe. It's sci-fi and fantasy. There are elves, there are golems, there are probably goblins, there are all the other races that you find in Tolkien's books and on movies. Point is, it could be any of them.
There is the Heartstone.
Yeah, but they lead into the sci-fi so much harder than the fantasy, and maybe they'd want to change that. Maybe with the robots, that was the impression they got. Maybe they were like, okay, we went into the sci-fi enemies pretty hard with the robots, and we got backlash, and or we just didn't really like them. Maybe now they're gonna try and go for like orcs. Or something like that.
Well, I've always liked the idea of them adding orcs or goblins. I really want people to shut up about elves. Like, I don't know why. I don't want to see the elves.
Harry's
But
racist against elves.
I just
In
don't.
all fairness,
It's just like, elves are behind the robots. It's getting annoying, guys.
Elves
It's not.
as a
It's not
whole
an interesting
is getting
idea
annoying.
anyway.
People, I think, have made note of it, but like a lot of the new players are just calling everyone else leaf lovers and elves and like pointy ears.
They're not really presented as evil. Dwarves just don't like them. They're not some ominous threat they're known about.
Yeah.
I think we'd know if elves are behind the rival corporation.
I just
Elves
get
are just
on.
like that's it. It's not that. I don't think it actually goes that deep.
If anything, if elves are ever the villains, it's because they are material destroying, nature destroying. Like, they could actively be like protest Deep Rock Galactic, right? That's probably what the elves would do, antagonist-wise. They're like
a peaceful
stop killing.
protest. That's the anomaly. They'll just be in the caves, just like with signs.
Saying don't kill silica harvesters. They're they'll like, I don't know, try and protect the nature of Hoxies. That's like probably the best you're gonna get elf villain wise, right? They're just fellas like the dwarves and the I think it is confirmed that management is human, right?
I don't think so, but it's not confirmed either way, and I think management. Management's different. Management's an awkward one. Mission control I think is pretty obviously human. I think overall, Deep Rock just being a human-run company is pretty obvious to me, because if anyone's looked at the website, it talks about how they hired dwarves. They brought the dwarves on board. The company brings the dwarves on board, which to me implies not a dwarf-based company.
Yeah.
Pretty obviously, in my
just
opinion.
a racist company that employs for a pod race.
Well, anyway, I want to see goblins or orcs, because they could basically be like space pirates.
The thing is that I think it would feel weird. I don't know about you, but seeing a pig man running at me along with hieroglyphics just wouldn't sit right. I think they do kind of have to leave the technical enemies you face to be leaning.
Well, it'd be like a raiding
sci-fi.
party. It'll be like a raiding party, like an event that can happen, and they'll come through where the drop pod came from, because like they're basically just riding our coattails of actually being part of the company. They're trying to basically, if they were like space pirates, they'd basically be trying to do what we're doing, but without actual. Not that I think DRG has any real jurisdiction or any legal claim to Hoxie's.
I think
but at the same time, the pirates, the goblins would be even more sort of
or maybe the goblins, when you're about to finish
criminal
a mission,
about it.
you're literally as you're leaving and the molly deposits, they would try and hijack the drop pod and take the minerals that you just.
No, I think it'd be pretty simple. They just come, they come in and try and kill you.
But why
they don't know how to get in. They don't know how to get below the surface, so they'll just follow where the drop pod goes.
Yeah, but they won't then be able to mine. They don't get anything from that. But if they wait until you mine,
they'll sort of like follow you and wait.
But no, they wait until you deposit everything into Molly and you start leaving, so all of your minerals are in the container, everything's been mined, then they attack you. That's what makes sense, especially if they're pirates, right?
They would definitely
what
try and
type of
hijack
sense
the
makes
drop pod.
sense.
But I just like the idea of because this works as very different enemy type, but doesn't fall into sort of the trap of what made the robots unsatisfying to fight. These would still be ground-based enemies, and probably have mostly melee weapons, but they could also still have guns. So they could sort of be on the level of like matching you. Like I always say, patrol bots sort of almost match the dwarves, but this would be a more direct match.
Does
They
it not
basically are
rub
just
you the
other
wrong way, though?
dwarves.
Like imagining, just imagine a piglin from Minecraft, right? Obviously less cubic, but still polygonal, right? Yeah, and imagine them chasing at you next to a bunch of.
No, I imagine the goblin from Clash of Clans, but like slightly jacked. That's what they would be.
That still just feels weird.
They'd sort of be like hunched over, like little green men.
Like most of the enemies, in fact, I think virtually all of them that you're supposed to kill do not have faces, really, right?
I know, but maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they do have masks on.
Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they do kind of do that, but they just heavy armor them up. Just armor them up to the point where you cannot recognize them as a being.
It might not even like be clear what they are at all. They're just space pirates,
and they just
sort
like
of clad in
squeal
sort of
like a pig as they run towards
scrappier. Like they're fully covered, but it's still quite scrappy scavenger armor. But they're still fully covered.
As much as I think that's good, it's also they just recently had it so the dwarves have done that. And if you then get an enemy that's dressed like the dwarves, that would feel a bit weird. You know what I mean? Like.
You mean like zombies?
No.
Or
which doesn't really work with
mismatched armor from fallen dwarves that they've kind of just like killed.
Yeah.
Some parts of like the Mark V driller, some parts of like the Mark III scout.
I mean, I think
just random.
Harry, you really want there to be like zombie dwarves and or just dwarves that are against you, right? Like that's like.
Well, neither of these things, in my opinion, quite work with what we know about season 3. And I don't see how there'd be goblins that have like bits of dwarven armor, and they just come out of nowhere. They haven't really been.
Well,
around,
maybe it's their pirate ships coming. They have a giant space pirate ship coming in towards Hoxie's.
But the problem is the way it's described, though.
Yeah, I know. I am aware.
What I think we know is that whatever's coming is
it's not in control. It's just flying.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just on a course. It can't change. So it can still be, obviously, it'd be a ship, but it'd be an abandoned ship.
Like if they were in control, it would have been they were on course to like Kratos, let's say, right? But the fact that it's parabolic would imply that it isn't capable of stopping. Basically, it's gonna get affected by the gravity and be thrown out, right? At least their readings of it imply that no one's at the helm. But I think we're going to get quite a few seasons, quite a few enemies, quite a few events, quite a few things. These are very valid future ideas, right? Like, I mean, obviously, give or take a lot of things about it, but
yeah,
I think
I can't remember if goblins have been mentioned. So I know goblins are a thing.
Yeah. Mud golems,
I don't think orcs
have been mentioned.
I don't know how
I'm kind of hooked. I don't know why, but I am interested in seeing golems, which is also.
I'm just imagining an iron golem.
But, yeah, bear in mind that if a meteorite crash lands, maybe meteorite golems. Maybe it's a golem creature. Point is, that was recently added in the voice lines as well, which makes me kind of speculate that they have golems on their mind all of a sudden. Maybe they're hinting towards them being added. Not that they've ever really done that, but yeah.
Well, golems would be very cool. Like,
there'd be like an oppressive.
if there's some kind of like magical thing on this object that sort of just, I don't know what it would do, but it would be very. How that would work, it would just be a very cool way of being like.
It would be like an ebonite enemy.
Well, no. It'd be like one for each biome, basically. They'd all be fairly similar, but it would mostly be visual. But it'd be like one new in every biome, and then a different attack.
I also kind of thought that, like, if they don't want to add a golem as a new technical enemy type, I was thinking variant of a Omeran fight. Instead of summoning the balls and the lasers, maybe it summons like 2 or 3 golems to attack Doretta, and you have to take them down. That could be a thing. But
this is just a random, like, complete offshoot from your idea.
I don't
what
know
if
if
they changed the
thumbnail works
Omeran, like, ball, the heartstone thing, into like it's like a golem's heart, so you have to kind of take out its arms and legs for then Doretta to drill into its chest and take out its core.
I mean, first of all, I think that's a way cooler idea than what's actually in the game. But I think that could be a very possible thing. If they want to keep doing boss fight game modes, which I cannot see a future where they do, right? Because so far, they are going 0 for 2.
the right way.
They have fumbled. But thing is, though, people generally don't. People dislike industrial sabotage. People are apparently fine with escort duty. I did a poll. People are, it's whatever. Some people, like higher up, people actually quite like it, and some people just don't, which I'm one of them. But yeah, they are really not nailing boss fight game modes, except for the elimination one. They did the elimination update that added the 2 new variants, and that was amazing. It's one of the best game modes. But so far, they have kind of fumbled. I think it comes down to stationary boss fights. They are not particularly good.
Stationary boss fights aren't good.
The core lock isn't bad, but it also isn't the greatest thing in the world. I mean, Betsy's not much better, but like, I don't know. Their boss fights.
Betsy's more just overpowering than
Yeah,
pain.
she is quite strong, and she hunts you down, which is pretty strong. But like, they're hit and miss as far as bosses are concerned. So I'm not sure how happy I would be if they added a new one that's like hunting a golem down as the main objective. But an event, I wouldn't mind. Like a golem is like formed in the cave or something, or like half formed, and you have to take it down. You summon.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a Triffleite. If you summon like bombs or mining to like kind of get into its core while it tries fighting your way and summoning other things, and yeah, it could be cool. But once again, kind of off topic. But I think. That is really it. They have left it so unbearably vague as to what's coming towards Hoxie's that you really could take a shot in the dark anywhere. Which is why we did this grenade video first of all, because we knew that grenades were coming, right? So speculating is reasonable. But as you could tell, with us not actually knowing what's coming next, it has turned into a bit of a idea vomit. Of us just
stuff is being thrown left,
whatever
right,
comes
center.
into our mind, like this could be the next thing, and with no actual answer in sight, these ideas are just into the atmosphere. Meanwhile, with the grenade ones that Harry came up with and we kind of whittled down on, those are all valid, not inherently valid, but like all ideas that hold value in that. When we get to know what the grenades are, we'll be like, okay, we guess like 5 of the bunch that they added, or none of them was terrible. Stuff like that. But for now...
This is like bingo just for the rest of the king's lifetime.
My bingo is add mud golems, or any form of golems into the game. Harry wants... to fight against a dwarf in some shape or form, like have their weapons used against him, kind of thing.
I want a pink suit colour.
Maybe you want to aim for a suits first. What What about beards?
When they're gonna have the suits?
Maybe just some better full head cosmetics.
What, like full head mask?
Because they're just, yeah, like a fucking like Crusader helmet or some shit. Just something that
I would
actually looks
not mind
good.
a Crusader helmet.
When they're gonna have knight armor?
Because all the full helmet ones genuinely just look shit.
I think actually maybe that is something. Maybe they could do with leaning into fantasy armor as like a DLC. I would imagine. They go for a more fantasy dwarven because they've been like teasing stereotypical fantasy looks. Jesus Christ, it's getting bad.
Shut him up.
I'll mute him. Just kind of ignore him if he says stuff.
To be fair, we've been going for a while.
we could and will stop soon. But yeah, literally, this has been the Baron Vision podcast with a bunch of ideas as to what could be coming towards Hoxie's and what that could mean. Events, anomalies, biomes.
What if
It's
you and me kissed in the crystalline caverns?
I would rather kiss anywhere other than that. The crystalline caverns went from one of my favourite biomes to one of my least. Because of those damn gigantic, annoying horizontal crystals.
They changed that recently.
Yeah, I think that's.
I haven't seen it though.
Or they reduced it, or they've added.
Yeah.
Okay.
they just made the crystals bigger.
When they were that size, they were never meant to be. They were never meant to be as big as they've been.
Because they are literally
different
consuming. I assume you've seen them as well, James. In crystal covers, like the horizontal crystals that just take up an entire room. Just it. That's like you can no longer move around or see things to mine. It's gone.
It's just the shit that blocks entire pathways. You're like, right, now I've got to spend all this time fucking.
Yeah, actually, crystalline cavern is one of the worst for small tunnel blockage as well.
That does happen a lot. It's weird, isn't it?
So
it's weird. Well, we'll be doing a biome tier list at some point, I think.
Probably.
Well, yeah.
I would imagine it's
probably.
I mean, yeah, it is going to be one of the sooner of the tier lists. But Saturday is not a tier list, and I'm saying this publicly so that I can't just not make the video to get away with not doing one. But in that video, we'll be explaining why we think there is going to be something like that in the event, in the new game mode rather. I
feel like I wonder if we're missing something like really obvious.
Normally we are. It is a safe bet.
Doesn't really take much, let's be honest. We are incredibly stupid.
And on that pleasant note,
I'm taking the miner's manual. It's sort of like
don't. The miner's manual is terrible.
You've got planetary regions.
I would not.
No, because it puts everything sort of into perspective. We've got planetary regions, which is just the biomes, and then we've got the mission section, which shows all the mission types, anomalies, and warnings.
Yeah.
They are like the four main.
And currently we get like one of those
sort of
per season.
Gameplay elements. Yeah, which is why it's probably going to be a biome or an anomaly next. Also, in like the little pictures on the anomalies and warning section, there's at least one in each that doesn't exist.
What? Yeah, I've seen them for a different thing as well.
In the anomalies one, there's like a thermometer, which I thought was like, oh, what if that's like one where all enemies just temperature themselves? Or like one where your temperature can't change or something like that. Temperature installation, something retarded. And then warnings, there's an exclamation mark, which hasn't been used.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's why I've got to say, as much as I'm fond of, and this is getting far too into it, I will literally say this and that's it, we're done. But I'm fond of the seasonal format, but I really kind of wish they just added stuff when they had it. Just like, you know what, let's add 3 warnings, and they'll just do that, and then we'll have 3 more warnings. But now we're gonna get like 1 warning every 2 years. Like, it's just, I don't know, because it's
I mean, I'm gonna be real confused if it's not a biome or an anomaly next season.
Honestly, if it's a game mode,
that'll throw us through.
If it's a game mode, I just need to hope it's good, right? But if it is a warning, I will be kind of disappointed, because
if it's a mission type that isn't boss fight focused, I'll just be happy.
Because I think we've got to bear in mind that, like, as much as the rival presence was a pretty cool secondary mission, the only reason people aren't inherently complaining, considering that's the only real actual content we've had to bite into, is because we've got to experiment with the secondaries. But
secondary objectives, they haven't done.
Maybe that actually
We have to include
I
that.
haven't actually thought of them. So
No, that's still weird
yeah,
that we haven't.
but I think they're not really that big of a deal. I guess that's why. But like, okay, it's gone. Yeah, it's gone. Thought's gone.
Yeah.
So I think.
Let's go.
Yeah. Point. No, I remember now. The grenades are not going to hold anywhere near as much playtime as messing around with the secondaries or primaries. Right? There's no overclocks or mods to sink into.
Unless
Unless they do that.
Unless they do, I would actually argue grenade overclock wouldn't even. It wouldn't come close to the amount of actual time experimenting with the new secondaries.
No, you're right. But no, you are right. You are correct.
Yeah. So.
Although overclocks for grenades would be a good idea.
Well, it's not a bad idea.
Yes. Yes. I also strongly believe in beer. No, the sort of. Well, we always write new beers. I like the idea of new beers that sort of help. Well, because the original one, not the original one, but one that came up recently was 4 grenades. And I thought, oh, well, maybe what about just ammo in general? But I thought, no. Grenades are sort of in this place where that makes. If you're going to have a beer that gives you more of the stuff in your arsenal, grenades are really the only one that works for. And it would sort of be something that maybe gives you a couple more grenades. And
I think
can throw
like,
them
all right,
but then that should be a part of strong arm anyway. You know.
But I think once again that we'll get into this. Well, we won't get into this, but I mentioned why I think this in the video. But there is a tendency for them to add stuff that kind of buffs up the hub in each season. And last time we had like Phase Unite, and the season before we had the actual season pass concept. But maybe this time we will get like special drinks or something like that. They'll add more of the beer systems, or maybe a cosmetic overhaul, maybe question mark.
Bomber brew.
Or something like that. Pickaxe, actual customization, I don't know, like charms. Point is, not really charms, but thank you
Speed cola
for watching the Barrel Vision podcast.
Damming up. Is that
Your
Juggernaut?
mother in bed.
Now,
Is it a Juggernaut?
look forward to
Mule
our
Cake.
next video, or don't. I am not
Nuka
your
Cola.
boss. Thanks for the audience, you
No,
two.
hold on. Stop. No. Yeah. do look forward to our next video.
I do look
actually.
forward to it. I might actually be there for the entire thing next time.
No,
What?
you probably won't be. Well, no, it's just not really one of those
scared.
videos. It's just me doing a presentation and Harry just saying yes. Although he does tend to sometimes
What?
say more than that. God, you rude bastard. But thank you for watching. You guys say it too.
Tell me doesn't make it better.
Thanks for watching.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm gonna before we go. I'm gonna find the funniest mission name currently
No,
in
you're not. I'm
rotation.
stopping recording now.
No,
Bye.
Rolling Stones!